very good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the agenda. I hope everybody is having a good long weekend. My name is Tewan Jabela, your host. Tonight on the show, we are addressing the issue of unemployment, and that is really also because of the graduations that took place this past week at our main universities. Meaning that more people are actually being pumped into the market or the streets, as some would call it, because there's a lot of people on the streets currently struggling with securing jobs. And to discuss this tonight with us is Boas Johannes. He's a university lecturer who has produced a lot of students over the course of the past years, and we want to sort of find out what the challenges are. Of course, we had invited some of the unemployed graduates to this show today, but due to certain other factors, they couldn't join us tonight because we wanted to hear from the horse's mouth, because we know somehow that the discourse about unemployment has actually been monopolized, if you like, by people who have jobs. But hopefully tonight we can understand a few dynamics. Boas, thank you for making time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have me on.
Wonderful. Yeah. So you obviously you are a lecturer at the University of Namibia's medical school. You are speaking in your private capacity, and we appreciate your time. Let's talk about this elephant in the room, which is really youth unemployment as far as graduates are concerned. The universities, one of the excuses that have been flaunted around is that universities are not giving the market what the market wants. What is your observation in that regard?
Oh, well, the university is there, as the word university says, it's universal. Yeah. It gives you courses and training from all fields that you can imagine of. Yeah. But then the main factor is when you as a student, when you go to the university, is your liberty to pick what you want to study. So then what you pick to study and how employable and how you are going to become a graduate and how the market is going to absorb you will then become also a huge factor that follows after that. So what you pick, and you should relate that to the market. If you pick something that the market might be saturated of, and then that could be a problem that could lead to unemployment. If you pick something or you go into studies, you study for a very long time without picking up experience on the way, that could be another factor as well, that you could be sleeping at home at 7:30 instead of being somewhere else employed.
Yeah. But then picking fields of study is one thing, but being now trained in what you have picked, are people getting trained properly in those ones, especially in the Namibian context? People, if you are an unemployed school teacher today, is it because you're unemployed because you don't have the quality that the market requires to teach those children, or there are simply no opportunities?
Opportunities is I would rather let it lean on opportunities. Which of course is also tailored on what I mentioned before, that what you pick. There are examples like when you, it's the example that you give for teachers, if you pick subjects that what we call STEM in STEM fields, that is your science, technology, engineering, mathematics, you are the chances of being unemployed is very little. Compared to, there are, I don't have the statistics with me now, but most of the teachers that are unemployed are the teachers from low primary school, that is from grade 0 and grade 3. That's lower primary. And it's also from observation you come to realize that there are also more institutions that are offering that profession, and compared to teachers at secondary schools. So now curriculums have also changed. You have what you call AS level now. Teachers that are ready to teach AS level, they're also limited. So it's very hard to find someone that I'm able to teach AS level in a STEM field, but I'm unemployed. Yeah.
But the quality, you're not answering that question. Are the universities producing quality graduates?
Yeah, the quality, as for the quality, I can assure you that the quality is there. If you can rate our universities, they are relatively high on the continent. So it's not that we have very poor products, but the products are good depending on the system that is there. So the students that are put on the market is then gauged according to the levels of the university. Yeah.
The universities, how often what are the synergies between the universities and the markets to say, we as a market, of course, encompassing different fields, this is the level of quality and skills that we need from you as trainers at universities. Is there any constant conversations taking place, or are you guys stuck in the past and therefore you're not evolving with what the markets want?
Yeah, that's very important. When you look at the industry is definitely evolving as time goes on, with different parameters that could be factors into that evolution. And it's also important that the universities or other training institutions will also be on par, trying to keep up with that evolution. And the universities, it is really important for universities to also be reviewing their curriculum after, let's say, 5 years. And then with that reviewing, then it is very important to bring on stakeholders from the industry, depending on which training that you offer. So like myself, I'm a medical physicist, so I'm in the medical and the health profession. So we should be very have a close synergy with the hospitals and the Ministry of Health, and see that this is what the industry wants, and we'll see then how will we tweak our curriculum in order to be on par with what the requirements of the industries are.
One of the issues that get said a lot is also creating synergies between theory and practice. People are saying, some people are fed with a lot of theory at university, and that when they come to the market, they have absolutely no idea what to do. In that regard, and I know that in the medical school, you guys do that a lot. A lot of your students actually spend a lot of time in hospitals practicing and whatnot. But I'm not sure about other fields. But so at the university, you would know, even if you are not in those specific fields, that perhaps that is not happening as frequently as it happens in your school. What is the importance of really having students do as much practice as possible to ready them for the market?
Yeah, okay, that is really dependent also on what is one actually studying. If it is like vocational schools, training, technical training with your hands on, that is very much important, because what you are, is called vocational training center, you need hands on. But then the university is, you need also a lot of theory, but from that theory, it's not memorized based theory, it's more of principle and understanding those principles. And you have to make sure that you don't memorize those theories. You have to understand those theories, and only then once you understand it, then that's when application comes in. So with the concept of management and other strategies, is the principles that you need to understand, and then, but that will of course also comes with theory. University theory is like really important, and how you apply, application of will then comes in, how do you apply that theory? That's when you are in the market and industry.
But whose responsibility should it be? Is it that the markets must open up themselves to students to come in and do some hands-on activities? Or is it that the universities themselves must be equipped with tools and laboratories? And I mean, I studied media at the university, and we had a radio station on campus where we practiced. UNAM had UNAM Radio, and there was also a newspaper called Campus Vision, which was a campus newspaper. But it was a club of friends. The people, the presenters on radio were not even from our department. It was people from the law departments there, because they had better English than us and all these things. But you know, so whose responsibility should it be to really avail those practical experiences?
Okay, that will then depend on two things. How much resources does the university have? Then the university, if the universities or training centers have to take it upon themselves to have enough resources to mimic what the industry looks like. But usually that is more hard to take on, but rather is to introduce a system of internships. So we have, that is not a relationship with the university and the industry. So we have these students, then the third year, fourth year, before they graduate, let them come to the industry and spend some time, and then just have an idea of how the market looks like. And usually it's the latter. Because having the resources in order to set up a mini industry on a university, like you have mentioned, a university radio station, that is the exact concept of somehow trying to mimic how the industry looks like. So when the student is going out there as a graduate journalist or presenter, or a graduate in the media space, then they are already familiar to that environment, because the university did have infrastructure to mimic how the industry looks like.
I mean, one of the many conversations is, I mean, people are even contemplating that the industries must be compelled, that institutions must be compelled, maybe through legislation, to avail internship opportunities. Of course, there are some other technical things as to how much you must pay people, or must they be paid at all. But that's a different conversation. But availing a platform itself to say, look, annually, each mining company in this country, each media house, each, manufacturing company must avail 10 spaces or whatever, depending, of course, on their size.
Yeah.
You know, because now it's voluntary, and people can simply say, no, go away, we don't want interns here or whatever. We are too serious with business, with no time to be teaching people things. Do you think that we must put the hammer down a bit and say, look, it now has to happen?
Yeah, of course, it's like really important, because once the student comes or the graduate comes and ready for employment, they are well equipped. I can't say much about other industries, but within my industry, the medical field, then even our intakes, we take our intakes depending on how much the industry can absorb. So for example, I teach radiographers as well, and then we only know that we have this amount of hospitals, and by how many interns can they take, how many students can they take, can they accommodate. partake, and then so there is that communication between the industry and the, especially but for mining industry, in the mining industry is like really important to have that. So now you have students that that can't, so that requirement is also made in other fields, that you can only get your degree when you have certain hours or certain days of internship. And someone could be at home and not having not having completed those hours of training, so hence then they can't graduate. So it is made mandatory from the side of the university. So it's up to the industry and the market to absorb those students, to make sure that they avail or they make them possible to graduate.
Yeah. You spoke about STEM, which is, I think, science,
technology,
engineering,
and mathematics.
Mathematics.
Yeah.
And you said those ones, if you graduate in those areas, the likelihood of getting a job is higher than ordinarily the other fields. What are the university's responsibility to make sure that they also regulate the intakes, so that you don't just take in people, take their money, and flush them into the market that is no longer responding to the volumes of people being available for jobs? In other words, should the universities have a proper responsibility to say, given what we are seeing in the markets now, we may no longer just train too many people in these fields that are not responding to the output? Your thoughts?
Okay, that will also, as I said earlier, a university is there to offer everything. From the word university, is universal. Yeah. So then it will also then depend on if you want to get into this STEM fields, then you are also required to have very good grades coming from high school. And then generally some of our students or some of our kids will want to go that, I don't want to go do medicine, I don't want to do engineering, I don't want to do computer science. That is difficult. And then at first here you want to think, let me do this, let me go, if I'm to be a teacher, let me not be a mathematics teacher, let me rather be a primary, a grade 1 teacher, a preschool teacher, because this is easy. But it's easy now, but then after you graduate, you might not find things easy afterwards. Apologize to say that. But then the university will also then and many universities are coming on the grid, and it is also cheaper in terms of infrastructure setting up. It's cheaper to teach some of these modules or some of these courses that are currently saturated in the market, and it requires more capital into setting up a medical school, or to setting up a dentistry school. So that economics also play a role in that regard.
Yeah, but if a university, Boas, if a university, of course, because universities are also very intense research institutions. You do a lot of research, you collaborate with your partners in those kind of areas. So if you know that Namibia would only need a certain number of doctors in five years from now, and you know that your doctors perhaps take 5 years to graduate. So if you take in this number, you have a clear vision to say, okay, assuming that everybody passes, that you in 5 years' time, you're going to pump this number of doctors in the hospital, in the market. So if you know that the number that you are going to pump in the market in 5 years' time is much higher than what the market will require, doesn't the university then become responsible and say to itself, look, let's also limit the number of intakes so that we don't just train people for nothing? Of course, students have a right also to say, I want to be trained. I couldn't care less what the university says. I want to be trained in that specific field. But somehow the university ought to have some responsibility and say, but no, it's too much. We can only limit to this number in order to also make sure that there are balances in the market.
Oh, okay. Like for the example that you gave for doctors, I don't see. We have a medical school that started since 2010, and we have been producing doctors. 2010, our first graduates were 6 years after that, 2015, 16, and so we've been producing medical doctors for 7 years now. And I will tell you this now, for the next 50 years, we are not going to have enough doctors.
Yeah.
So on that extreme end of the spectrum, that's the example that I give in the STEM field. So medicine will also be closely related to science. We are not going to get that end of the spectrum is not going to be saturated in anytime soon, unless something happens, maybe technology-wise, when we have robots taking over doctors. That is the one end of the spectrum. We are not going to have enough of those. And then we have at the entry spectrum, then we have teachers of primary school teachers. We have office administration people, and those that get to be trained by the university. Those courses will still be there. You can't take them all out. And the other thing that I mentioned, those schools are also becoming many. And the fact that the reason why they're becoming many is because they are less cost effective to set up compared to setting up an engineering school, which would be, so you can't, and government can't also make it mandatory that for the next person that wants to set up a school, it shouldn't be primary school teachers, but it should only be engineers. Legislation will be finding it difficult to set that in place. So that is, and then also the right of the people. The people, it comes with gender also. We say that more boys are here, more girls are here. You can't force that. No, we don't have enough girls here. We don't have laws in place to push people in different directions like that. So so then unemployment will then only become a natural phenomenon that will be present in our environment for some time, unless something magical is to occur.
Yeah. We will talk, we're going to break, but we'll talk about what must happen to contain this situation, because there ought to be some solutions to the escalating need for unemployment. We'll be back.
Okay.
Ranging from current affairs, community stories, local index remains unchanged while overall index.
Thank you for joining the show that highlights the news-making headlines in the land of the brave and beyond.
Always major victorious.
We're going back. We continue the conversation with Boas Johannes. So again, thousands of new graduates have been pumped into the market they have been pumped actually into the market this week with those graduations. And I've seen some people saying, yeah, no, but some people are so scared already that they will experience what many others are going through. You are in the medical field, and in this, it's not the kind of field that struggles a lot with jobs, but we have a lot of nurses now also not having jobs. When you run into these people, whether former students or just people that you know that have graduated from university and remain unemployed up to now, what do they tell you? What do they say is the challenge?
Yeah, it's just a lack of opportunities. I've been trying where I tried where, and then the next question that comes to mind is, can can you only make a living if you are employed? And then the answer to that is, can you employ yourself? And then what comes to mind is, what do you do in order to make yourself employable? So those are the next questions that comes, that if employment is not happening, then you should be asking yourself more questions like, what can you do in order to make a living? Can you employ yourself? Self-employment is the next thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's a tricky one, because self-employment, I have seen a lot of young people lately trying to do certain things, but even what they are doing now has become, that segment of self-employment has also become very saturated, because people can only do certain things under such circumstances. You don't have capital, you don't have assets to go to the Development Bank of Namibia and ask for a 50,000 loan. You have nothing to guarantee it with. So people resort to things like, what is it called? Buying things from China.
Order with me.
Order with me. I'm selling chicken. Every second house in the street now sells chicken. So it becomes also very saturated there. But that is one element of it. From a national point of view, what is it that should happen actually? Because we can't just say, okay, you've graduated now, you're on your own. As a country, as a leadership, as a government, as policymakers, there ought to be some interventions.
Okay, intervention from the state can, there is once we run out of ideas, there is one thing that we always run to, is either saying that the government must look nicely there, or the next thing, you look to the skies, then let God do. So the government and God is put on, once I fail, I've attempted everything, so God is in your hands, the government must do. But one thing that we don't also see, that what can you do for yourself that the government can do for yourself? Like you said, there are also many things that we are doing, like selling things, like you adapt it as Order With Me. What can't you think of that is being innovative? And diversity will also comes in there. If I see a friend of mine is doing this, a friend of mine is doing this, then everyone wants to do this because they saw one person is doing this. How about if you be innovative? Okay, let me do this, what others are not doing, and then you'll be the outstanding one. And once you, okay, there is like social media is also something, a space that is popping up very well now, and people are starting to make money off social media alone. You don't have to need startup capital. You can start something just while you are have your head on your pillow, and then you can have ideas running, and then money can still come in.
Must we become comedians doing TikTok videos, or what is it on social media that we must do?
That's actually a very big space that is happening now. So especially the COVID came along and people thought like they lost their livelihood. Whereas if you see tech, the tech industry actually picked up, and you see other businesses their revenue might have gone down, but if you see Apple, Google, and they have picked up in their revenues, that meaning people are more on the internet. People shopping is more done on the internet, and a lot of things is happening when it comes to technology. And it's not that for people that went to school and have graduated with a computer science degree or information technology, is something that you can do on your phone, on your PC, on your tablet, and you can take it from there.
But do you so you see the challenge in Namibia, Boas, is that it's not like, in fact, and we've been using the word saturation a lot on this show tonight, but that is not even the issue. I can tell you that almost every industry in our country at the moment is operating below full capacity. I read a report, a news report this past week, which said that the Ministry of Health is only operating at 60% of its full capacity, meaning there is 40% more people that can be acquired to fill the proper capacity of the ministry. So when people are selling chicken or doing order with me, it's not because the country is now saturated, it's oversupplied with skills. It's actually, the country actually needs these people, but there's no money to employ them, especially from a government point of view. The private sector also included. So in that scenario, it can't be now up to these people. There ought to be something that employers must do. The government in particular, as the biggest employer and as a regulator, there ought to be a lot that they can do.
Yeah, so there's in that regard, there's a lot of pressure also on the government. So you're seeing reports that there's a huge salary bill on the government, and they want to reduce that. Reducing that is also making more people unemployed. So those are other economical factors that I don't think I'm qualified to go into those. Yeah, but government will always be held liable in other, but those are different challenges that are also upon us.
Yeah, I hear you. So what are the dangers of a graduate that has acquired their qualification in 2018 or 2019 and 4 years later they still haven't gotten any job? What is the likelihood of them actually forgetting what they've learned? Because the amount of time that you are at home is actually sometimes the same amount of time that you've spent at university.
Yeah.
4 years at university, 4 years unemployed. You get a job in the 5th year and it's back to square one. I don't know, but you in the academy, in academia might be able to tell us.
Okay, looking at this from an unemployment point of view, you want to say we have some of our brothers and sisters like, I did this degree, I'm not employed. Now let me go and see if I could go back to school. Come to think of it, you are doing this trying to see that, okay, let me still be in school, let me be upgrading, let me be adding on to what I have. We do this with a thought in mind that you're making yourself more employable, but coming to see this is from another point of view, is you could actually be making yourself even more unemployable because you have this experience, this knowledge, this certificate, this degree, and then you say, okay, let me add on a master degree, let me add on a PhD. So you are now a journalist that haven't worked before, but with a master's degree or a PhD. And then you have another journalist that is with some intern training or with some few years of experience. The market is more likely to turn to the person that have only experience with a small degree with experience compared to you having even more. So my advice to that, or a solution to that, instead of adding to what you have more, like say if you have a degree in journalism, instead of going to get a master's degree or a PhD in media, rather try to go around, do a different course in that surrounding, in that environment, instead of piling on to what you have. And then you make yourself more, your knowledge more diverse, instead of specific in one and trying to zoom into one knowledge, and make yourself widening your spectrum might actually make you more employable instead of specializing in one field while you are not employed. It's very good to specialize in one field that you are employed in, or maybe while you are employed and trying to diverse into a different industry. So could you actually forget what you were taught in school?
I don't remember much. The reason I'm asking is because
could you forget?
I did science in school.
Yeah.
I did science until grade 12. Of course, then I went on to do journalism. But today, if you remind me of, if you ask me any single question from my biology or periodic table, I'll barely tell you anything.
Yeah. Okay. So that will depend on if you were in university, were you busy memorizing? So that is something that we are trying to move away from. We don't want our students to be memorizing the content. We rather want them to understand the principles that they should acquire to go and apply in the industry. Because if you memorize something, you put it to memory, and memory is very fragile, but things moves in and out of memory. But if you, with understanding, I don't think you forget understanding. But you might forget. Memory can come in and out. But if you understand the principles that you are to use, if you are trained in management, I don't think you can forget to manage people. Once you get the concept, then so forgetting what you are really taught. So no one in the industry will say that no, you were in school 10 years ago, so I will not employ you because you might have forgotten what you said. But with that experience, it's very important that you must be practicing what you did in school. So experience is also important, but forgetting is really not something that is really of worry per se.
Let me give you a scenario. If you were an employer and you have 2 applicants for a job that you're offering, one applicant graduated 4 years ago, never worked, and the second applicant is fresh out of university, which one would you go for?
At face value, you look at them as having degree and not experience. That is the face, how to look at it at face value, and then you consider other factors. As an employer, I will look at them as the same. Having a degree, no experience. Then you look at other degrees, at other parameters. Having that, you will consider them as both as the same, because experience will then be the next one in that. So you could say that if you are looking for a person in a certain field, but then this person was out of school for this long, but then you still ask them, what have you been doing for the past 4 years? Obviously, you won't ask the same question because they just came out of school. So then this person might have been doing something that could still give him a disadvantage, an advantage too. So you could lean on to this person depending on what have they been doing. So maybe they are unemployed with respect to what they have studied, but they could still be doing, or they kept themselves busy. But that business or whatever they kept themselves busy, how significant is it? It could not be related to exactly what you are studying, but it could be management. When managing a small chicken business, but that is still managing something. So that you could still lean on to this person depending on what have they been doing while unemployed. But if you're sleeping, this one was sleeping and this one's fresh from university, then they are equally treated.
Yeah. You spoke about the tendency of maybe once a person cannot secure a job after graduating with their first degree, that they use that time to now accumulate further qualifications. Maybe you do your master's again, you do your postgraduate studies. Does it advantage you or disadvantage you when you eventually apply for jobs now with your master's? You've never worked, you don't have work experience at all, but you have a master's degree, and they advertise a position for a junior software engineer, but you have already a master's or even a PhD in that area. What would be the attitude of the employer? Would they say, "Oh, let's take a guy with a bachelor's in this field, because also essentially that we can afford a person with that degree, rather than employing a guy with a PhD, Dr. Thomas, but Dr. Thomas is a junior software engineer." I mean,
never worked in the industry before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So then there's different parameters also, ways to look at that. One thing becomes, can you afford them to pay? So because an intern, you might pay an intern less, and this one has a master's degree, and then they will definitely demand more compensation. And then the other parameter that you could look at, so this person is only taking this entry employment opportunity because they are desperate. And then the next question you could ask yourself, so if I give this person an opportunity, how long will I keep them here? Or am I going to be having to re-advertise this position because this person is only using this position as a stepping ladder? So if you are comfortable with all those parameters, then you could be taking, say, you are you are overqualified, but I'm willing to take a chance on you. But most likely, many employers will tend to, on the other side, saying this one is cheap to employ, and then once I have them in this position, I will have them for a long time. They will grow within the institution or business, or compared to, so you are only here, and then while you are on the job, while you are still looking at back pages, looking for other employment opportunities.
Yeah. Maybe in closing then, Boas, share with us your experience. Again, the topic today is about people graduating, but they can't find jobs. What was the situation with you? What can you tell us about your own experience?
Yeah. With myself, I did study my undergrad with the University of Namibia, where I'm currently working, and I did my undergrad degree in physics with a minor in geology. Before graduation, after graduation, we graduated a year after. I was at home for maybe a couple of months, and then I was called in by my professor that no, there is an opportunity here to go and do a master's in physics. I did geology and physics, but on the physics side, there's an opportunity here to go and do a master's in physics applied in medicine. So I went to the University of Ghana. I stayed there for 2 years. I came back. When I came back, there was the year I was last in university, that was 2010, and then the university set up a school of medicine. So when I came back, there was no medical physicist employed at the university, because so we had staff from the physics department coming to teach at the School of Medicine. So then when I came back, I said like, oh no, I'm back here now. And then I said like, oh yeah, and went back to my school. I said, oh, there's a School of Medicine here. There is no resident medical physicist. So I was lucky. I was on time for the opportunities while it's there. So I should be working at the hospital as well, either at the oncology center or at the radiology side, but rather I'm at the university teaching the people that are going to those industries. So I was rather fortunate. I was right on time for my qualification. I found the market unsaturated.
So overall, how long would you say that, okay, fine, so it's a couple of months after your first degree, and then
I went for
went for a master's, and then how long after you got your master's did you get a job?
Yeah, so after I came back for my master's, I did present myself that I'm back, I'm here, I'm available. So then they have also responded that there is a need for you. And then the rest was only a waiting time just to have the HR work to be set in place, and then I got into the system. So I was fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, I will share in closing my own experience, I think, for the sake of the viewers. Again, 2007, I graduated in April. I was home for the whole of May 2007, unemployed. June, I got an opportunity to be trained, like on the job training. Yeah. So you could say that I was semi-employed by June of that year. By July, I was fully employed. And so I was very lucky because I mean, I don't have any technical skills like you do. But back in the days, the markets used to be very friendly. So essentially, I was technically unemployed for 1 month only after graduation. Yeah. So, but thanks for coming through, Boas. We'll call you back again as the need arises. We need to keep the conversation going. So thank you for your time.
Okay. Oh, it was a pleasure to have me on. Once more again, thank you very much.
Wonderful. That was tonight's show with Boas Johannes. He's a lecturer at the University of Namibia. He was speaking in his private capacity on how he sees things as far as graduates struggling to secure jobs is concerned. Thank you for watching.